Two F-35 Lightning jets approaching restricted airspace. Unidentified aircraft at Angels 25. The voice cut through Nevada Test Range Control Tower like a blade. "Sir, we have a problem." The radar operator's hand trembled as he adjusted his headset. "Contact is showing. This can't be right." His screen flickered with an impossible call sign that hadn't been seen in active duty for 8 years. "Black Widow, active status." The entire control room fell silent. "Colonel James." Harrison slowly removed his coffee cup from his lips, liquid growing cold as he stared at the impossible data. His voice barely a whisper. "She was declared unfit for service. How is she flying?" Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Meet Captain Sarah Chen, 31 years old. Disheveled black hair perpetually escaping from regulation ponytails. Olive skin bearing faint scars from shrapnel wounds that never quite healed properly. Compact athletic build that seemed fragile in oversized maintenance coveralls. Dark eyes behind standard issue safety glasses that reflected years of disappointment. She worked as a ground systems technician at Nellis Air Force Base, specifically in the aircraft maintenance division where nobody expected much from anyone. The other personnel assumed she was just another former logistics officer who couldn't cut it in the cockpit. Quiet and unremarkable. The type of person who fixed hydraulic systems and calibrated instruments while real pilots soared through desert skies above. Every morning at 04:30, Sarah arrived at the maintenance hangar before the night shift had even finished their final inspections. She'd methodically review work orders for the day, cross-reference parts inventory with scheduled maintenance requirements, and update digital logbooks that actual pilots never bothered to read. Her small workstation tucked away in the corner of the massive hangar bay was organized with military precision. Tool sets arranged by size and function. Technical manuals stacked in perfect order. Maintenance schedules color-coded by aircraft type and priority level. The combat pilots would stride past her desk without acknowledgement, their polished flight boots clicking against concrete floors as they headed to briefing rooms where real aviators discussed tactics she'd supposedly never understand. Lunch breaks. Sarah sat alone at a corner table in the base cafeteria, methodically eating her packed sandwich while reviewing technical specifications for aircraft systems on her tablet. Sometimes she'd glance up through the grease-stained windows at F-22 Raptors, practicing combat maneuvers overhead, her trained eye automatically noting inefficient banking angles and suboptimal formation, spacing that would have earned sharp criticism from her former flight instructors. Her fingers would unconsciously trace the outline of a small silver pendant hidden beneath her uniform shirt. A tiny pair of wings that most people assumed was just cheap jewelry from the base exchange. They had no idea those wings were earned through 200 hours of advanced fighter training, or that the woman quietly calibrating avionics systems had once been considered the most naturally gifted pilot in her flight school class. The maintenance bay constantly buzzed with activity as ground crews serviced million-dollar aircraft with practiced efficiency. Senior technicians supervised routine inspections while junior personnel handled basic maintenance tasks under careful supervision. Sarah's responsibilities fell somewhere in the middle, complex enough to require significant expertise, but not prestigious enough to attract attention from commanding officers who determined career advancement opportunities. She specialized in flight control systems, the intricate network of computers and sensors that kept modern fighter aircraft stable during high-stress combat maneuvers. Her work was precise, methodical, and absolutely critical to pilot safety. Though nobody considered it glamorous or particularly noteworthy, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, a cocky young pilot fresh from advanced training, often made jokes about the maintenance crew during informal gatherings at the officers' club. "That Chun woman probably thinks she understands our aircraft better than we do," he'd say while adjusting his perfectly pressed flight suit. "I bet she's never even been in a fighter cockpit. just reads about flying in technical manuals. His wingmen would laugh and add, "She looks like she'd get airsick in a flight simulator." Other pilots would nod in agreement, completely unaware that the quiet technician they dismissed so casually had actually outperformed most of them in every measurable aspect of flight. Training before her career took an unexpected turn. Sarah's daily routine remained consistent and unremarkable. She'd arrive before dawn, review overnight maintenance reports, assign work priorities to her small team of junior technicians, and spend most of her shift troubleshooting complex electronic systems that kept multi-million-dollar aircraft operational. Her expertise with flight control computers was recognized by her immediate supervisors, but her recommendations rarely reached higher-level decision-makers who might have valued her unique combination of technical knowledge and practical flying experience. The base's actual combat pilots viewed maintenance personnel as necessary support staff, important for keeping aircraft functional, but not particularly relevant to tactical planning or operational strategy. During quiet moments between maintenance tasks, Sarah would sometimes stand near the hangar entrance and watch training flights take off from the main runway. Her eyes would track aircraft movements with the precision of someone who understood exactly what each pilot was doing, right or wrong, during takeoff procedures. She'd notice when someone's climb angle was too steep for optimal fuel efficiency, or when formation spacing was slightly off during group exercises. These observations remained unspoken, filed away in her mind alongside dozens of other technical details that nobody thought to ask her about. The combat pilots assumed she was just another maintenance worker watching expensive toys she'd never be qualified to operate. Her small apartment off base reflected the same methodical organization as her work area. Aviation magazines stacked neatly on a coffee table, technical reference books arranged alphabetically on built-in shelves, and a single framed photograph on her nightstand showing a group of young pilots in flight training gear, their faces bright with enthusiasm and dreams of future glory. Sarah's face was among them, barely recognizable beneath a standard-issue helmet, but her smile was genuine and confident in a way that seemed impossible to reconcile with the quiet, reserved woman who now spent her days fixing other people's aircraft instead of flying her own. The base's social hierarchy was clearly defined and rigidly maintained. Combat pilots occupied the top tier, their status reinforced by distinctive flight suits, specialized training, and access to restricted areas where tactical planning occurred. Support personnel, including maintenance technicians like Sarah, were respected for their technical expertise, but generally excluded from the informal networks where real career advancement opportunities were discussed. This separation meant that most pilots never learned about the backgrounds or qualifications of the people who kept their aircraft operational, leading to assumptions based on current job assignments rather than actual experience or capability. Sarah's interactions with pilots were typically brief and professional. They'd report technical issues, she'd diagnose problems and implement solutions, and they'd return to their aircraft without extended conversation. This pattern suited her perfectly, allowing her to focus on her work without drawing unwanted attention to her past or inviting questions about how someone with her obvious technical competence had ended up in a maintenance role instead of a cockpit. The other technicians occasionally asked about her background, but she'd deflect such inquiries with vague references to previous assignments and a preference for working with her hands, rather than discussing personal history. The morning briefing room at Nellis Air Force Base buzzed with the usual pre-flight chatter as combat pilots reviewed their training schedules for the day. Captain Rodriguez adjusted his headset while studying weather reports on his tablet, occasionally glancing at the maintenance status board that displayed aircraft readiness levels. Lieutenant Webb strutted into the room with his characteristic swagger, flight suit pressed to perfection, and aviator sunglasses perched on his forehead like a crown. Another day of showing the maintenance crew how real flying gets done, he announced to his squadron mates, earning appreciative chuckles. from several younger pilots who looked up to his apparent confidence. Sarah entered the briefing room quietly through the back entrance, carrying a thick folder of overnight maintenance reports that required pilot signatures before aircraft could be cleared for flight operations. She moved along the perimeter of the room, avoiding the clusters of pilots who dominated the central seating area, her safety glasses reflecting the harsh fluorescent lighting that made everyone look slightly pale and tired. Her presence was barely acknowledged by the assembled aviators, who continued their conversations about weekend plans and complaints about modified training procedures that supposedly made their jobs more difficult than necessary. "Chun, did you finally fix the hydraulic pressure issue on Falcon 7? Lieutenant Webb called out without turning around, his tone carrying the casual dismissiveness of someone addressing a subordinate. Sarah approached his seat and handed him the relevant paperwork, her voice steady and professional as she explained the replacement parts that had been installed during the overnight maintenance cycle. System tested at full operational parameters. She reported, watching as he scrawled his signature across the bottom of the form without bothering to read the technical details she'd carefully documented. "Should be good for your training exercise this afternoon." Webb glanced up at her briefly, his expression suggesting mild irritation at having to interact with support personnel during his pre-flight routine. "Just make sure it doesn't malfunction during my hop," he said, using pilot slang for training flights in a way that clearly excluded her from the insider terminology. "I don't need some maintenance screw-up ruining my flight hours." The other pilots nodded in agreement, their body language reinforcing the implicit hierarchy that placed combat aviators firmly above the technicians who kept their aircraft operational. Sarah simply nodded and moved on to the next pilot who required maintenance documentation. The squadron's commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Hayes, entered the briefing room with purposeful strides that immediately commanded attention from the assembled pilots. Her presence shifted the atmosphere from casual camaraderie to professional focus as everyone straightened in their seats and prepared for the day's operational briefing. Hayes was known for her no-nonsense approach to training and her intolerance for mistakes that could compromise pilot safety or mission effectiveness. She glanced briefly at Sarah, who was still collecting signatures on maintenance forms, but showed no particular interest in the technician's presence during what was essentially a pilot-only meeting. "Gentlemen, today's exercise focuses on close air support procedures," Hayes announced, activating a large wall-mounted display that showed a detailed map of the Nevada test range. "You'll be working in pairs to provide simulated ground attack coverage for infantry units operating in hostile territory." She used a laser pointer to highlight specific waypoints and target coordinates, her presentation crisp and professional. "Weather conditions are optimal, with clear skies and minimal wind shear below 20,000 feet. Any questions about the mission parameters?" Lieutenant Webb raised his hand with characteristic confidence. "Colonel, what's the expected threat level for today's exercise?" Hayes consulted her briefing notes before responding that opposing forces would be represented by experienced aggressor squadron pilots flying modified F-16s configured to simulate enemy aircraft capabilities. They'll be using realistic tactics based on current intelligence assessments, she explained, so don't expect this to be a routine training flight. The assembled pilots exchanged glances, their expressions showing a mixture of excitement and apprehension at the prospect of facing skilled opponents. Sarah had finished collecting maintenance signatures and was preparing to leave the briefing room when she overheard Lieutenant Webb making another dismissive comment to his wingman. "I bet that maintenance chick has never even been in a fighter cockpit," he said, his voice carrying just enough volume to be audible to anyone nearby. "She probably thinks flying is just like the flight simulators they show in movies." His companion laughed and added, "She looks like she'd pass out from the G-forces during a basic training maneuver." Several other pilots smiled at the exchange, their amusement reflecting shared assumptions about the capabilities of non-pilot personnel. Comments stung more than Sarah cared to admit, but she maintained her professional composure as she headed toward the exit. Her fingers instinctively moved to the small silver wings pendant hidden beneath her uniform shirt, a gesture that had become unconscious over the years whenever she encountered dismissive attitudes from active pilots. The weight of the small piece of jewelry served as a reminder of accomplishments that nobody at Nellis knew about, achievements that had been overshadowed by circumstances beyond her control. She'd learned to accept such comments as part of her current reality, even though they demonstrated how completely her colleagues misunderstood her background and qualifications. Back in the maintenance hangar, Sarah's team of junior technicians was already hard at work preparing aircraft for the day's training flights. Airman First Class Jennifer Martinez was conducting a pre-flight inspection on an F-35 Lightning, methodically checking hydraulic fluid levels and control surface movements according to standard procedures. "Sergeant Chen," she called out. The left aileron response seemed slightly sluggish during the control check. Sarah grabbed her diagnostic equipment and joined Martinez at the aircraft, her practiced eye immediately identifying the specific servo actuator that required adjustment. "Good catch," Sarah told Martinez as she began calibrating the control system with practiced efficiency. A less experienced technician might have missed that subtle variation in response time. She explained the technical details of the hydraulic system while making the necessary adjustments, her teaching style reflecting years of experience with complex aircraft systems. Martinez listened carefully, asking relevant questions that demonstrated her eagerness to learn from someone she clearly respected. The interaction highlighted Sarah's expertise in a way that the pilot's dismissive comments completely failed to recognize. The maintenance base public address system crackled to life with an announcement about weather updates for the afternoon training flights. Sarah paused in her work to listen, automatically processing the meteorological information in terms of how it would affect aircraft performance and pilot workload. Her mind ran through calculations about wind shear effects, visibility conditions, and temperature variations that could impact engine performance. The same analytical thinking that had made her such an effective pilot during her training years. The weather report was routine, but Sarah's response to it demonstrated the kind of comprehensive situational awareness that separated exceptional aviators from merely competent ones. As the morning progressed, Sarah continued her routine maintenance duties while the combat pilots prepared for their training mission. The physical separation between the hangar bay and the pilot briefing areas reinforced the social distance that kept the two groups from meaningful interaction. This segregation meant that the pilots remained unaware of Sarah's extensive knowledge about their aircraft, her insights into optimal performance parameters, and her ability to diagnose complex technical problems that could affect flight safety. They saw only what they expected to see: a competent technician who understood mechanical systems, but lacked the specialized knowledge and experience that defined real aviators. The Nevada test range stretched endlessly beneath a crystalline blue sky, its barren landscape dotted with strategic targets and electronic warfare equipment, designed to simulate realistic combat environments. At 14:30 hours, the afternoon training exercise was proceeding according to schedule when the first signs of trouble began manifesting in the control tower's sophisticated monitoring systems. Senior Air Traffic Controller David Kim frowned at his primary radar display, adjusting gain settings to clarify what appeared to be an anomalous contact appearing intermittently on his screen. The blip showed characteristics that didn't match any scheduled aircraft in the training area, moving at speeds and altitudes that suggested military configuration rather than civilian traffic. "Sir, we have an unidentified aircraft contact bearing 090 degrees, altitude indicating 25,000 feet, Kim reported to his supervisor, Master Sergeant Rachel Torres, who immediately moved to examine the radar display. The contact appeared to be maintaining a steady course that would intersect with the active training area where Lieutenant Webb and his squadron were conducting their close air support exercise. Torres checked her flight schedule database twice, confirming that no additional aircraft were authorized to be operating in that specific airspace during the designated training window. The mystery aircraft's speed profile suggested an advanced fighter configuration, but its electronic signature didn't match any known friendly aircraft currently assigned to Nellis or any of the surrounding military installations. "Run an IFF interrogation," Torres instructed, referring to the identification friend or foe system that should provide automatic identification of any military aircraft operating in controlled airspace. Kim activated the electronic query system, sending coded signals that should have triggered an immediate response from the mystery aircraft's transponder. Instead of the expected identification code, his screen displayed an error message indicating that the aircraft was either not equipped with standard IFF equipment or was actively refusing to respond to the interrogation signals. This behavior was highly unusual for any legitimate aircraft operating in restricted military airspace, suggesting either equipment malfunction or potentially hostile intent. The duty officer, Major Robert Chun, was summoned to the control tower to assess the developing situation. His weathered face showed concern as he studied the radar display and reviewed the unsuccessful IFF interrogation attempts. "Could be a lost civilian aircraft that wandered into restricted airspace," he suggested, though his tone indicated skepticism about that explanation. "Or it might be one of our own aircraft with malfunctioning identification equipment." Torres shook her head, pointing to the speed and altitude readings that clearly indicated military performance characteristics, far beyond what any civilian aircraft could achieve. The mystery contact was maintaining precise flight parameters. That suggested an experienced military pilot rather than a confused civilian aviator. "Sir, whatever it is, it's heading directly toward the active training area," Kim reported, his voice carrying increased urgency. "At current speed and bearing, it will intersect with Webb's flight path in approximately 12 minutes. Major Chun grabbed the secure radio handset and attempted to establish direct communication with the unidentified aircraft, broadcasting on standard emergency frequencies used for situations involving potential airspace violations. "Unknown aircraft. At bearing 090, altitude 25,000, this is Nellis Control. You are in restricted military airspace. Identify yourself immediately and state your intentions." The radio silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the steady hum of electronic equipment and the distant sound of aircraft engines from the active runway. Meanwhile, 6 miles above the Nevada desert, Lieutenant Webb was leading his 4-aircraft formation through a simulated ground attack sequence against electronic targets positioned throughout the training range. His F-35 Lightning responded smoothly to control inputs as he lined up for a practice bombing run. The aircraft's sophisticated targeting systems automatically calculating optimal release parameters for the training ordnance. "Viper flight, this is Viper 1, he transmitted to his squadron mates. "Beginning attack run on target complex. Alpha, maintain formation spacing and watch for simulated surface-to-air threats." The other pilots acknowledged his instructions, their aircraft spreading into attack formation as they prepared to engage the designated targets. The training exercise was proceeding normally when Webb's threat warning system suddenly activated, indicating the presence of another aircraft in the immediate vicinity. His heads-up display showed a contact approaching from the northwest at high speed, but the aircraft's identity remained unknown because it wasn't broadcasting standard identification signals. "Viper flight, be advised we have an unknown aircraft in our training area," Webb transmitted, his voice carrying the professional calm expected of a combat pilot facing potential threats. "Maintain tactical spacing and prepare for possible evasive maneuvers if this contact proves hostile." Back in the control tower, The situation was escalating rapidly as multiple radar operators confirmed the presence of the unidentified aircraft. Senior Controller Kim had expanded his radar scope to maximum range, revealing that the mystery aircraft had been operating in the general area for at least 20 minutes before being detected by the primary surveillance systems. "Sir, this aircraft has been avoiding our radar coverage using terrain masking," he reported to Major Chen, indicating flight patterns that suggested intimate knowledge of the Nevada test range's electronic surveillance capabilities. "Whoever is flying that aircraft knows our radar blind spots and has been using them to avoid detection." The implications of this revelation were sobering. The Nevada test range was one of the most secure military installations in the United States, protected by multiple layers of electronic surveillance and patrolled by some of the most advanced fighter aircraft in the world. For an unknown aircraft to penetrate this airspace and avoid detection for an extended period suggested either a serious security breach or the involvement of someone with detailed knowledge of the facility's defensive systems. Major Chen immediately activated the base's alert procedures, notifying security personnel and requesting additional aircraft to assist with the potential threat. "Scramble the alert fighters," Chen ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making critical decisions under pressure. "We need to identify this aircraft immediately and determine its intentions." Within minutes, 2 F-22 Raptors from the Standby Alert Squadron were racing down the runway, their powerful engines screaming at full afterburner as they climbed rapidly toward the mystery aircraft's last known position. The Raptors were piloted by Captain Maria Santos and Lieutenant Colonel James Morrison, both experienced interceptor pilots trained to handle exactly this type of situation. As the F-22S climbed toward intercept altitude, the mystery aircraft's behavior became even more puzzling. Instead of attempting to evade the approaching fighters or flee the restricted airspace, it maintained a steady course that would bring it into direct contact with both the training aircraft and the incoming interceptors. This behavior was inconsistent with either a lost civilian aircraft or a hostile intruder, suggesting a level of confidence that implied official authorization or extraordinary circumstances. The aircraft's flight path seemed deliberately calculated to create maximum confusion and concern among the air traffic controllers and military personnel monitoring the situation. Lieutenant Webb's squadron had been ordered to maintain their current position while the interceptor aircraft investigated the unknown contact, but the proximity of the mystery aircraft made their situation increasingly tense. Webb could see the unknown aircraft clearly now through his cockpit canopy, noting its unusual configuration and the fact that it appeared to be a military fighter of some kind. "Control, Viper 1 has visual contact with the unknown aircraft," he transmitted. "It appears to be a modified fighter aircraft, possibly experimental configuration. No visible weapons or aggressive maneuvering observed." The mystery aircraft's pilots seemed to be deliberately maintaining a position that would force the intercepting F-22s to approach from a disadvantageous angle, demonstrating tactical awareness that suggested military training and combat experience. Captain Santos, leading the interceptor flight, noted the sophisticated positioning and reported her observations to ground control. "This pilot knows what they're doing," she transmitted. "Aircraft positioning suggests advanced tactical training and intimate knowledge of intercept procedures." The comment sent chills through the control tower personnel, who were beginning to realize that they were dealing with someone whose capabilities far exceeded those of a typical airspace violator. Captain Maria Santos adjusted her F-22 Raptors targeting system as she closed the distance to the mystery aircraft, her experienced hands moving with practiced precision across the complex array of switches and displays that controlled the world's most advanced fighter jet. Through her reinforced canopy, she could clearly observe the unknown aircraft's unusual configuration, what appeared to be a heavily modified F-18 Super Hornet with experimental stealth coating and additional sensor pods that weren't part of any standard military configuration she recognized. The aircraft's movements displayed a level of tactical sophistication that immediately caught her attention, suggesting the pilot possessed advanced combat training far beyond what she'd expect from a typical airspace violator. Raptor 1 to control. I'm observing non-standard modifications on this aircraft, Santos transmitted, her voice carrying the professional tension of a pilot encountering something unexpected at 30,000 feet. External configuration suggests experimental avionics and possible stealth enhancements not found in any current military inventory. She maintained standard intercept positioning while studying the mystery aircraft's flight characteristics, noting the precise control inputs and energy management techniques that revealed an exceptionally skilled pilot at the controls. The unknown aircraft seemed to anticipate her intercept maneuvers, adjusting course and altitude with split-second timing that demonstrated intimate knowledge of fighter intercept procedures. Lieutenant Colonel James Morrison, flying as Raptor 2, approached from the opposite flank to complete the standard intercept formation. His radar warning receiver remained silent, indicating that the mystery aircraft wasn't actively targeting either of the F-22s with weapon systems, though the sophisticated electronic countermeasures emanating from the unknown aircraft suggested defensive capabilities that matched or exceeded current military standards. Raptor 2 has contact, Morrison transmitted. This aircraft is broadcasting some kind of electronic signature that I've never encountered before. My threat warning system can't classify it using standard identification protocols. Back in the control tower, Major Chen was coordinating with multiple agencies as the situation continued to develop in ways that defied standard explanations. The mystery aircraft's electronic signature had been forwarded to the Pentagon's classified aircraft database, where analysts were struggling to match the unique combination of characteristics with any known military program. Sir, we're getting some very strange feedback from the identification systems, Senior Controller Kim reported, his voice carrying confusion and growing concern. The aircraft's electronic signature is triggering recognition protocols that shouldn't exist for any operational aircraft. The breakthrough came when the mystery aircraft's sophisticated identification system finally responded to a specific military query code that hadn't been used operationally for nearly a decade. Kim's radar display suddenly populated with information that made him question his own equipment's reliability. The screen showed a call sign that had been officially retired from active service 8 years earlier, along with pilot authentication codes that should have been permanently deactivated, following a classified incident that resulted in the pilot being declared unfit for further military service. Sir, this can't be correct, Kim said, his voice barely above a whisper as he stared at the impossible data. Major Chen moved quickly to Kim's workstation, his experienced eyes scanning the information displayed on the radar screen. The call, signed Black Widow, appeared in bold letters, accompanied by classification codes that indicated the highest levels of security, clearance and access to compartmentalized military programs. Chun's face went pale as he recognized the implications of what he was seeing. Run a verification check immediately, he ordered, though his voice carried the tremor of someone who already suspected what the results would show. Cross-reference that call sign with current military personnel databases and check the status of all associated clearances. The verification process took exactly 97 seconds, during which the entire control tower fell silent, except for the humming of electronic equipment and the distant sound of aircraft engines. When the results appeared on Kim's secondary display, they confirmed what everyone had hoped was impossible. Sir, call sign Black Widow is associated with Captain Sarah Chen, formerly assigned to the Top Gun program at Naval Air Station Fallon. Kim read from his screen, his voice growing stronger as he processed the significance of the information. Service record indicates exceptional performance in all flight training categories, followed by administrative removal from flight status due to classified incident. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison's voice crackled through the radio with barely controlled amazement. Control, Raptor 2 requesting immediate clarification on the identity of this aircraft. My threat warning system is now showing this pilot as having security clearances that exceed my own authorization level. Santos added her own observations, noting that the mystery aircraft was demonstrating flight characteristics that suggested modifications well beyond standard military specifications. This pilot is flying like someone with extensive combat experience. She transmitted. Aircraft handling suggests familiarity with experimental flight test procedures and advanced tactical techniques. The revelation that Black Widow was piloting the mystery aircraft created a cascade of questions that nobody in the control tower was prepared to answer. Captain Sarah Chen had been officially removed from flight status following an incident at the Top Gun program that remained classified at levels requiring special authorization to access. Her current assignment as a maintenance technician at Nellis had been assumed to be a permanent career change, the result of whatever circumstances had ended her promising career as a naval aviator. The idea that she might still be flying, particularly in an aircraft with capabilities that exceeded standard military configurations, challenged every assumption about her current role and status. "Get me a secure line to Naval Air Station Fallon immediately," Major Chen ordered, his mind racing through the implications of having a supposedly grounded pilot operating advanced aircraft in restricted airspace. "I need to speak with whoever was responsible for the original incident that resulted in Chen's removal from flight status." The secure communication took several minutes to establish, during which the F-22 pilots maintained their intercept formation while observing the mystery aircraft's continued demonstration of exceptional flying skills. The unknown pilot seemed completely unfazed by the presence of two of the world's most advanced fighter jets, maintaining course and speed with the confidence of someone operating under legitimate authority. The conversation with Fallon proved to be frustrating and revealing. In equal measure, the duty officer who answered Major Chen's call confirmed that Captain Sarah Chen had indeed been removed from the Top Gun program following a classified incident, but the details of that incident remained sealed under security protocols that required authorization from the Pentagon to access. "I can tell you that her removal was not related to flying ability or competence," the Fallon officer explained. "Her performance records were actually exceptional, among the best we'd seen in years. The incident was political in nature, involving classified operations that I'm not authorized to discuss." Captain Santos continued her observation of the mystery aircraft, noting flight maneuvers that demonstrated capabilities she'd never seen displayed by any pilot outside of highly classified test programs. "Control, this pilot is executing maneuvers that suggest familiarity with aircraft performance. Parameters well beyond standard operational limits," she transmitted. "I'm observing energy management techniques that indicate extensive experience with experimental flight testing." Morrison concurred, adding that the electronic countermeasures being employed by the mystery aircraft suggested access to classified defensive systems not available to standard operational units. The mystery aircraft suddenly banked into a gentle turn that brought it onto a heading directly toward Nellis Air Force Base, its pilot apparently deciding to terminate whatever mission had brought her into the restricted airspace. The maneuver was executed with textbook precision, demonstrating the kind of situational awareness and tactical thinking that characterized only the most exceptional military aviators. "Raptor flight, the unknown aircraft appears to be heading toward Nellis for landing," Santos reported, maintaining escort formation and requesting instructions for approach procedures. Major Chen found himself facing a situation that had no precedent in his 22 years of military service. A pilot who was supposedly unfit for flight duty was operating an aircraft with capabilities that exceeded anything in the current military inventory, demonstrating skills that suggested ongoing involvement in classified operations that nobody at Nellis had been informed about. The implications were staggering, suggesting either a massive security breach or the existence of compartmentalized programs operating beyond the knowledge of conventional military command structures. The modified F-18 Super Hornet touched down on Nellis Air Force Base's primary runway with the kind of precision that made veteran air traffic controllers pause their conversations and watch through the tower windows. Captain Sarah Chen's aircraft rolled smoothly down the center line, its experimental braking systems engaging with barely audible whispers of compressed air and advanced composite, materials that absorbed kinetic energy more efficiently than any standard military configuration. The landing was textbook perfect, demonstrating the kind of stick and rudder skills that separated exceptional pilots from merely competent ones, executed with a casualness that suggested thousands of hours of experience in high-performance aircraft. Ground control personnel watched in fascination as the mystery aircraft taxied toward the secure parking area designated for unscheduled arrivals, requiring immediate security evaluation. The aircraft's unusual external modifications became more apparent as it moved closer to the terminal facilities. Additional sensor arrays integrated seamlessly into the fuselage, engine intakes redesigned for improved stealth characteristics, and wing-mounted equipment pods that appeared to contain electronic warfare systems not found in any publicly acknowledged military program. Senior Master Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez, who had supervised aircraft ground operations for 15 years, had never seen modifications of this sophistication outside of highly classified development programs. As the aircraft came to a complete stop and its engine spooled down to idle, Sarah remained in the cockpit for several additional minutes, methodically completing post-flight procedures with the same attention to detail she brought to her maintenance duties. Her hands moved across the complex array of switches and displays with practiced efficiency, securing experimental systems and recording performance data that would be crucial for ongoing development of the aircraft's advanced capabilities. The canopy finally opened with a soft hydraulic hiss, revealing the pilot who had just demonstrated flying skills that defied every assumption her colleagues had made about her current abilities and status. Sarah climbed down from the cockpit with fluid movements that spoke of countless hours spent entering and exiting fighter aircraft, her flight suit bearing patches and insignia that were subtly different from standard military configurations. The most observant ground personnel noticed that her helmet and survival gear incorporated technological enhancements not available through normal military supply channels, suggesting access to equipment reserved for highly specialized operations. She moved with the confident bearing of someone completely comfortable in the high-stakes environment of advanced military aviation, a stark contrast to the quiet, reserved maintenance technician most base personnel knew. Lieutenant Webb and his squadron had landed shortly after Sarah's arrival, their F-35 Lightning jets taxiing past the mysterious modified Super Hornet as they headed toward their assigned parking spots. Webb's expression was visible through his canopy as he stared at the unfamiliar aircraft, his mind struggling to process what he was observing. The sophisticated modifications and advanced sensor arrays suggested a level of technological development that exceeded anything he'd encountered during his pilot training, challenging his assumptions about the current state of military aviation technology and the people who operated such advanced systems. Major Chen had descended from the control tower and was approaching the secured parking area where Sarah's aircraft sat cooling in the Nevada afternoon sun. His stride carried the purposeful tension of a commanding officer facing a situation that demanded immediate attention and careful handling. Behind him walked Colonel Patricia Hayes, the squadron commander who had been hastily briefed on the Fei-Wen-Mi developing situation involving one of her supposed maintenance technicians operating experimental aircraft in restricted airspace. Hayes's expression reflected a mixture of professional concern and personal curiosity about circumstances that challenged everything she thought she knew about personnel under her command. "Captain Chen," Major Chen called out as Sarah completed her post-flight inspection of the aircraft's external systems. "I think we need to have a conversation about your current flight status and the nature of this aircraft." Sarah turned to face the approaching officers, her demeanor remaining calm and professional despite the obvious tension in the situation. Her response demonstrated the kind of composed confidence that characterized pilots accustomed to operating in high-pressure environments, where clear communication could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. "Major, my flight status is current and valid under special operations protocols that supersede standard base-level authorization procedures," Sarah replied, her voice carrying the steady assurance of someone stating factual information rather than making defensive excuses. "This aircraft is part of an ongoing development program that requires periodic flight testing to validate modifications and system integration." She gestured toward the sophisticated sensor arrays and stealth modifications that distinguished her aircraft from standard military configurations, her explanation delivered with the technical precision of someone intimately familiar with advanced aviation systems. Colonel Hayes stepped forward, her experienced eyes examining the aircraft's unusual features while processing the implications of Sarah's response. "Captain, according to our records, you've been assigned to maintenance duties for the past 18 months following your transfer from Naval Air Station Fallon," Hayes stated, her tone reflecting both confusion and growing respect for the capabilities being demonstrated. "Your current position doesn't include flight authorization, particularly not for experimental aircraft of this sophistication." The comment highlighted the disconnect between Sarah's official assignment and her obvious continued involvement in advanced military aviation programs. Sarah's response revealed the first glimpse of the complex reality that had kept her true activities hidden from conventional military command structures. "Colonel, my maintenance assignment serves as operational cover for ongoing special access programs that require compartmentalized security protocols," she explained, using terminology that indicated familiarity with the highest levels of military classification systems. "The work I perform on aircraft systems provides valuable insights for the development programs I'm actually involved in, creating synergy between my official duties and classified responsibilities." Her explanation began to illuminate the sophisticated deception that had allowed her to operate in plain sight while pursuing activities that exceeded the security clearance of most base personnel. The two F-22 Raptor pilots, Captain Santos and Lieutenant Colonel Morrison, had completed their own post-flight procedures and were approaching the group gathered around Sarah's experimental aircraft. Their flight suits still bore the sweat stains and equipment marks that testified to the intensity of their recent intercept mission, and their expressions reflected the professional respect that one skilled pilot shows toward another after witnessing exceptional airmanship. Santos spoke first, her voice carrying genuine admiration for the flying skills she had observed during the aerial encounter. "Captain Chen, I've been flying fighters for 12 years, and I've never seen aircraft handling like what you demonstrated up there," Santos said, her comment reflecting both professional assessment and personal curiosity about the source of such exceptional skills. "Your energy management and tactical positioning suggested familiarity with flight test procedures that most operational pilots never encounter." Morrison nodded in agreement, adding his own observations about the advanced electronic warfare capabilities that Sarah's aircraft had displayed. During their encounter above the Nevada desert, the gathering crowd of military personnel created an impromptu briefing session as word spread throughout the base about the mysterious pilot and her extraordinary aircraft. Maintenance technicians who had worked alongside Sarah for months stared in amazement at the sophisticated fighter jet she had piloted, their minds struggling to reconcile the quiet colleague they knew with the obviously exceptional pilot standing before them. The cognitive dissonance was particularly acute for personnel who had dismissed her expertise or assumed her technical knowledge was purely theoretical rather than based on extensive practical experience. Lieutenant Webb approached the group with obvious hesitation, his earlier dismissive comments about Sarah's capabilities now seeming not just wrong but embarrassingly ignorant. His face showed the particular kind of chagrin that comes from realizing that confident assumptions were completely misguided, and his body language reflected growing awareness that he had seriously underestimated someone whose skills far exceeded his own. The other pilots who had participated in the casual mockery of Sarah's background showed similar signs of uncomfortable recognition that their judgments had been both harsh and inaccurate. Sarah's explanation of her dual role began to unveil a reality that existed far beyond the conventional understanding of military operations at Nellis Air Force Base. For the past 8 years, I've been operating under deep cover assignment protocols that require maintaining standard military position while conducting classified flight operations for Joint Special Access programs, she began, her voice carrying the measured tone of someone accustomed to briefing senior officers on sensitive matters. The maintenance technician role provides perfect operational security, allowing me to access aircraft systems and facilities without drawing attention from foreign intelligence services that monitor our conventional pilot activities. Colonel Hayes processed this information with the sharp, analytical mind that had earned her command of one of the Air Force's premier training squadrons. Captain, are you telling me that while you've been calibrating avionics systems in our maintenance bay, you've simultaneously been conducting classified flight operations that none of my staff knew about? Her question reflected both professional concern about command authority and growing appreciation for the sophisticated operational security that had kept Sarah's true activities completely hidden from base personnel who worked alongside her daily. That's correct, Colonel, Sarah confirmed, pulling a secure communication device from her flight suit that immediately caught the attention of every officer present. The device appeared to be several generations more advanced than standard military communication equipment, featuring encryption capabilities and satellite connectivity that suggested access to intelligence networks, operating well above the security clearance levels of most base personnel. My assigned handler can provide verification of my operational status and mission parameters, though that conversation will need to occur in a properly secured facility. Major Chun recognized the implications of what he was witnessing, his 22 years of military experience providing context for the extraordinary circumstances unfolding before him. This explains why your aircraft modifications are so far beyond anything in our current inventory, he observed, gesturing toward the experimental stealth enhancements and advanced sensor arrays that distinguished Sarah's Super Hornet from conventional military configurations. You're operating as a test pilot for developmental programs that exist outside normal procurement channels. The revelation prompted a cascade of questions from the assembled personnel, each seeking to understand how someone they'd worked alongside for months could have maintained such an elaborate cover identity. Senior Master Sergeant Rodriguez approached Sarah with obvious admiration mixed with professional curiosity. Captain, some of the modifications you've made to our base aircraft during routine maintenance, were those actually improvements based on your flight test experience? Sarah nodded, explaining that her maintenance duties had provided opportunities to implement incremental upgrades that enhanced aircraft performance while appearing to be standard repair procedures. The hydraulic response improvements on Falcon 7, the avionics calibration adjustments on Lightning III, the engine efficiency modifications on Raptor 5, Sarah enumerated, referring to specific aircraft that had shown measurably improved performance following her maintenance work. All of those enhancements were based on flight test data from experimental programs, implemented gradually to avoid drawing attention while providing our pilots with subtle performance advantages. The explanation revealed the sophisticated way she had used her cover assignment to benefit the conventional operations at Nellis while pursuing her classified responsibilities. Captain Santos stepped forward with questions that reflected her own extensive flight experience and technical knowledge. The electronic warfare systems on your aircraft were unlike anything I've encountered, she said, referring to the countermeasures that had confused her F-22's threat detection systems during their aerial encounter. Are you testing defensive technologies that will eventually be integrated into operational aircraft? Sarah's response indicated that her experimental aircraft served as a flying laboratory for technologies that would eventually enhance the survivability of conventional military aircraft operating in contested environments. The stealth modifications, electronic countermeasures, and sensor integration represent the next generation of fighter aircraft capabilities, Sarah explained, her technical knowledge demonstrating deep involvement in cutting-edge aviation development programs. My role involves validating these technologies under realistic operational conditions, providing feedback that guides the development process before systems are integrated into production aircraft. Her explanation illuminated the crucial link between experimental flight testing and the advancement of military aviation technology. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison raised questions about the operational scope of Sarah's classified activities, his security clearance allowing him to discuss certain aspects of special access programs that remained off-limits to junior personnel. Captain, how extensive is this development program? Are there other pilots operating similar experimental aircraft at bases throughout the military? Sarah's response indicated she was part of a small, highly specialized community of test pilots conducting classified evaluations of advanced technologies at multiple locations worldwide. The program involves approximately 24 pilots operating modified aircraft at various installations, Sarah revealed, providing the first glimpse into the scale of the classified activities she participated in. Each pilot maintains cover assignments that provide operational security, while allowing access to facilities and aircraft necessary for developmental testing. The information suggested a sophisticated network of undercover test pilots conducting advanced research throughout the military aviation community, hidden in plain sight among conventional personnel. The discussion was interrupted by the arrival of a black sedan with government license plates, its occupants clearly representing the intelligence community agencies responsible for overseeing Sarah's classified activities. Two individuals in civilian attire approached the group, their professional demeanor and obvious security credentials indicating authority that superseded conventional military command structures. The senior representative, a woman in her mid-40s, with the bearing of someone accustomed to handling sensitive situations, addressed Colonel Hayes directly. "Colonel, I'm Director Angela Morrison from the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency," she announced, presenting credentials that immediately established her authority over the situation. Captain Chun's activities fall under special access programs that require immediate security protocols. We need to conduct this briefing in a classified facility with appropriate clearance levels for all participants. Her arrival transformed the informal gathering into a formal intelligence briefing that would reveal the full scope of Sarah's involvement in advanced military development programs at the revelation that Sarah had been operating under DARPA oversight, explained the sophisticated nature of her aircraft modifications and the advanced technology she had been testing. DARPA's mission to develop breakthrough technologies for national security purposes provided context for experimental capabilities that exceeded anything available through conventional military procurement processes. Director Morrison's presence indicated that Sarah's activities were considered strategically important, enough to warrant direct oversight from the agency responsible for the most advanced military research and development programs. Lieutenant Webb found himself facing the uncomfortable realization that his dismissive comments about Sarah's capabilities had been not just wrong, but spectacularly ignorant of her actual qualifications and responsibilities. "Captain Chun," he said, his voice carrying genuine contrition, "I owe you an apology for my assumptions about your background and capabilities. Your flying skills obviously far exceed anything I've achieved in my career." His acknowledgement reflected the broader recognition among base personnel that their judgments about Sarah had been fundamentally flawed. The gathering crowd of maintenance technicians, pilots, and support personnel created an impromptu audience for revelations that challenged every assumption they had made about their quiet colleague. Airman Martinez, who had worked directly under Sarah's supervision for months, stared in amazement at the experimental aircraft and the intelligence officials who were treating her former supervisor as someone of obvious importance to national security programs. The secured briefing room in Nellis Air Force Base's intelligence facility buzzed with tension as personnel who had worked alongside Sarah for months struggled to process the magnitude of their misjudgment. Lieutenant Webb sat at the polished conference table, his hands clasped tightly together as he stared at the classified documents that Director Morrison had authorized for limited disclosure. The papers detailed Sarah's actual service record, revealing achievements that made his own flight training accomplishments seem insignificant by comparison. His face had gone pale as he read about her performance at Top Gun, where she had not only graduated first in her class, but had set records in multiple categories that remained unbroken 8 years later. She scored highest marks in tactical air combat maneuvering, precision weapons delivery, and air-to-air engagement scenarios, Webb read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. Her instructors noted exceptional situational awareness and intuitive understanding of aircraft systems that surpassed pilots with significantly more flight hours. The documentation revealed that Sarah's removal from the Top Gun program had nothing to do with performance deficiencies, but rather resulted from her recruitment into classified programs that required her to disappear from conventional military aviation careers to maintain operational security for sensitive missions. Senior Master Sergeant Rodriguez, who had supervised aircraft maintenance operations alongside Sarah, found herself reviewing incident reports that suddenly made perfect sense in light of the revelations about her colleague's true background. Every time we had a complex technical problem with advanced aircraft systems, she solved it faster and more thoroughly than our most experienced technicians, Rodriguez reflected, her voice carrying amazement at her own blindness to obvious indicators of exceptional expertise. I attributed it to careful study of technical manuals, but now I realize she was drawing on actual flight experience with experimental aircraft that most of us have never seen. The maintenance bay where Sarah had worked for 18 months became the subject of intense scrutiny as investigators realized that her cover assignment had provided opportunities for intelligence gathering that went far beyond aircraft repair duties. Captain Santos, still wearing her flight suit from the intercept mission, studied maintenance logs that revealed the subtle improvements Sarah had implemented on base aircraft over the course of her assignment. These modifications weren't just routine maintenance, Santos observed, pointing to technical specifications that showed measurable performance enhancements. She was conducting ongoing research and development work while appearing to perform standard repair procedures. Airman First Class Jennifer Martinez sat in stunned silence as she processed the realization that her supervisor and mentor had been one of the military's most accomplished test pilots while teaching her basic maintenance procedures. Every question I asked about aircraft systems, she answered with details that went far beyond what any maintenance manual contained, Martinez said, her voice reflecting the cognitive dissonance of discovering that someone she'd considered merely knowledgeable was actually operating at levels of expertise she couldn't have imagined. She knew exactly how every modification would affect flight characteristics, because she'd actually tested those modifications in combat scenarios. Colonel Hayes found herself conducting a thorough review of her own leadership practices as she realized how completely she had misunderstood one of the most qualified individuals under her command. I assigned her to routine maintenance duties and excluded her from tactical planning sessions, where her insights could have improved our training program significantly. Hayes admitted her professional integrity demanding honest assessment of missed opportunities. Her recommendations about flight procedures and aircraft modifications were consistently excellent, but I attributed them to theoretical knowledge rather than recognizing the practical experience they represented. The revelation prompted broader discussions about the assumptions that permeate military culture and the tendency to undervalue personnel based on current assignments rather than actual capabilities. Major Chen found himself questioning standard procedures for personnel evaluation and assignment optimization. How many other exceptional individuals are we overlooking because they don't fit conventional expectations about expertise and qualifications? He wondered aloud, recognizing that Sarah's case might represent a systemic problem rather than an isolated incident of misunderstood talent. Director Morrison provided additional context about the psychological profile required for deep cover assignments, like the one Sarah had undertaken. Maintaining cover for extended periods requires individuals who can suppress their natural desire for recognition and advancement, Morrison explained, her words illuminating the personal sacrifice involved in Sarah's operational choices. Captain Chen volunteered for assignment that required her to accept dismissive treatment from colleagues while pursuing missions critical to national security. The psychological strength required for such operations is extremely rare. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Lieutenant Webb's wingman, who had participated in many of the casual jokes about Sarah's supposed inexperience, found himself grappling with shame that went beyond simple embarrassment about being wrong. We made fun of her call sign, suggesting it sounded like something from a video game, he admitted, his voice heavy with regret. Now I learned that Black Widow was earned through combat missions that saved lives and prevented threats we'll probably never know about. Our ignorance wasn't just insulting. It was a complete failure to recognize genuine heroism. The technical specifications of Sarah's experimental aircraft became a subject of intense interest as base personnel realized they had been working alongside someone involved in development programs that represented the future of military aviation. Chief Master Sergeant Williams, the senior maintenance supervisor, studied photographs of the modified Super Hornet with professional fascination. The integration of stealth modifications with enhanced performance systems represents engineering sophistication that exceeds anything in our current operational inventory, Williams observed. Understanding that she's been testing these technologies explains why her technical recommendations were always so precise and forward-thinking. The psychological impact of the revelations extended beyond individual embarrassment to broader questions about military culture and the tendency to create hierarchies based on visible status rather than actual competence. Captain Santos found herself reflecting on her own assumptions about personnel assignments and the importance of recognizing expertise regardless of official position. The most dangerous aspect of our mistake wasn't just underestimating her capabilities, Santos concluded, but failing to create an environment where her knowledge could have contributed more effectively to our mission's success. The classified briefing revealed additional details about Sarah's operational history that demonstrated the scope of her contributions to national security while maintaining her cover assignment at Nellis. Over the past 8 years, intelligence gathered during her flight operations has prevented multiple terrorist attacks and provided crucial insights into foreign military capabilities. Director Morrison disclosed, her words carrying the weight of life and death consequences that had depended on Sarah's continued effectiveness in her undercover role. The maintenance technician persona allowed her to travel between military installations, and interact with personnel without triggering the kind of attention that CONVENTIONAL intelligence operatives might attract. The revelation that Sarah's seemingly routine interactions with base personnel had actually been gathering intelligence for national security purposes added another layer of complexity to the situation. Lieutenant Colonel Morrison realized that casual conversations about training procedures and aircraft capabilities had potentially provided valuable information about military readiness and technological development trends. Her position gave her access to information about pilot training effectiveness, aircraft reliability, and operational readiness that would be extremely valuable for strategic planning. Morrison noted, recognizing the sophisticated intelligence gathering opportunities that her cover assignment had provided. The maintenance personnel who had worked most closely with Sarah found themselves reviewing their interactions with new understanding of her true mission and capabilities. Sergeant First Class David Park, who had collaborated with Sarah on complex avionics repairs, realized that her suggestions for efficiency improvements had been based on operational experience rather than theoretical knowledge. She knew exactly which modifications would enhance pilot effectiveness because she'd tested those improvements under combat conditions. Park observed, his respect for her expertise growing as he understood the practical foundation of her technical recommendations. The broader implications of Sarah's successful deep cover operation prompted discussions about the effectiveness of compartmentalized security programs and the challenges of maintaining operational security while maximizing the value of exceptional personnel. The case demonstrated both the benefits and costs of keeping highly qualified individuals in roles that concealed their true capabilities from colleagues who could have benefited from their expertise. 3 weeks after the revelations about Sarah's true identity, the culture at Nellis Air Force Base had undergone a fundamental transformation that extended far beyond the personnel who had directly witnessed her extraordinary capabilities. The story of the maintenance technician who turned out to be one of the military's most accomplished test pilots spread throughout the installation, creating ripple effects that influenced how every person approached their interactions with colleagues. Lieutenant Webb found himself pausing before making assumptions about anyone's background or capabilities, his former confidence in surface-level judgments replaced by a deeper appreciation for the complexity of individual stories that remained hidden beneath professional facades. The maintenance bay where Sarah had worked became an unofficial monument to the dangers of underestimating human potential, with new personnel receiving informal briefings about the importance of recognizing expertise regardless of current job assignments. Senior Master Sergeant Rodriguez had instituted new protocols that encouraged all maintenance staff to share insights about aircraft performance and modification possibilities, creating an environment where knowledge and experience were valued regardless of their source. We learned that some of our most valuable expertise was sitting right here among us, unrecognized and underutilized, Rodriguez explained to incoming technicians, using Sarah's case as a cautionary tale about the cost of dismissive attitudes toward colleagues. The psychological impact of discovering Sarah's true identity forced many base personnel to confront uncomfortable truths about their own tendency to create hierarchies based on visible status rather than actual competence. Captain Santos had begun conducting informal interviews with maintenance staff during her pre-flight inspections, recognizing that technical personnel often possessed insights about aircraft performance that could enhance pilot effectiveness and mission safety. Her approach reflected a broader shift in military culture toward breaking down artificial barriers between different specialties and recognizing the value of cross-functional knowledge sharing. Colonel Hayes implemented new policies designed to prevent the kind of talent mismanagement that had kept Sarah's expertise largely hidden from decision-makers who could have benefited from her insights. Monthly briefings now included presentations from personnel across all job categories, providing opportunities for individuals to share observations and recommendations regardless of their official rank or assignment. Sarah's case taught us that exceptional capabilities can emerge from unexpected sources, Hayes explained during the commander's meeting, and our responsibility as leaders is to create environments where that expertise can contribute to mission success. The revelation that Sarah had been conducting intelligence-gathering operations while performing routine maintenance duties prompted broader discussions about the nature of service and sacrifice in military careers. Many personnel found themselves questioning their own understanding of what constituted meaningful contribution to national security, recognizing that some of the most important work occurred in shadows, where recognition was impossible and appreciation was rare. The quiet heroism that Sarah had demonstrated for 8 years became a new standard for evaluating the significance of military service beyond conventional measures of success and advancement. Lieutenant Webb's transformation was perhaps the most dramatic among those who had worked closely with Sarah during her cover assignment. His former cockiness had been replaced by genuine humility and a systematic effort to recognize the value in every person he encountered. I realized that my dismissive comments weren't just wrong about Sarah specifically, Webb reflected during a squadron meeting. They represented a fundamental failure of character that made me a worse pilot and a worse person. His public acknowledgement of these shortcomings inspired similar self-reflection among other pilots, who recognized their own tendency toward arrogance and superficial judgment. The technical improvements that Sarah had implemented on base aircraft during her maintenance duties became the subject of intensive study as engineering teams worked to understand and replicate her modifications throughout the fleet. The enhancements she had made were subtle but significant, demonstrating how deep expertise could create meaningful improvements that appeared routine to casual observation. Chief Master Sergeant Williams led the effort to document and systematize Sarah's innovations, ensuring that her contributions would continue benefiting aircraft performance long after her departure from Nellis. The broader military community learned about Sarah's case through carefully controlled information sharing that protected operational security while highlighting important lessons about talent recognition and utilization. Her story became part of leadership training curricula at military academies and professional development programs, illustrating the critical importance of looking beyond surface appearances to recognize exceptional capabilities that might otherwise remain hidden. The case study emphasized that true leadership required the wisdom to identify and leverage talent, regardless of its packaging or presentation. Director Morrison's continued oversight of Sarah's activities provided ongoing reminders that the most important military operations often occurred outside public awareness, conducted by individuals whose contributions would never be fully acknowledged or understood. The classified nature of Sarah's work meant that most of her achievements would remain secret indefinitely, known only to a small community of intelligence professionals and senior military leaders who understood the strategic importance of her contributions to national security programs. The maintenance personnel who had worked most closely with Sarah found themselves serving as informal ambassadors for a new approach to recognizing expertise within military organizations. Their first-hand experience of discovering exceptional capabilities in an unexpected colleague provided powerful testimony about the importance of remaining open to learning from anyone, regardless of their apparent position in organizational hierarchies. Airman Martinez began mentoring younger technicians, specifically about the importance of respecting knowledge wherever it appeared, using her experience with Sarah as a foundation for broader lessons about professional humility and intellectual curiosity. The psychological research conducted on military personnel's tendency to make assumptions based on job assignments revealed systemic biases that extended far beyond individual prejudices to institutional practices that routinely undervalued certain types of expertise. Sarah's case became a catalyst for examining promotion procedures, assignment protocols, and leadership development programs that might inadvertently discourage recognition of unconventional talent or non-traditional career paths that could contribute significantly to mission effectiveness. The philosophical implications of Sarah's story resonated throughout the military community as personnel at all levels considered the possibility that their own colleagues might possess hidden depths of experience and capability that remained unrecognized due to circumstance or design. The realization that extraordinary individuals might be operating in ordinary roles created a sense of wonder and responsibility that influenced how people approached their daily interactions with teammates and subordinates. In civilian communities surrounding military installations, Sarah's story became a powerful reminder that assumptions about people's capabilities based on their current circumstances could be dramatically wrong. The quiet individual working behind a service counter might be a former executive with decades of business experience. The elderly janitor might be a retired engineer who designed critical infrastructure systems. Or the part-time librarian might be a former intelligence analyst with insights into global political dynamics that could inform important decisions. The enduring legacy of Sarah's revelation lay not in the specific details of her extraordinary capabilities, but in the universal lesson about human potential that exists beneath the surface of every individual story. Her case demonstrated that true wisdom requires the humility to recognize that everyone carries experiences, knowledge, and perspectives that could enrich our understanding and improve our effectiveness if we remain open to learning from unexpected sources. The most profound impact of discovering Sarah's true identity was the recognition that genuine heroism often operates without fanfare or recognition, pursued by individuals who choose service over acclaim and contribution over career advancement. Her willingness to accept dismissive treatment from colleagues while conducting missions critical to national security represented a level of dedication that challenged conventional understanding of what it means to serve with distinction in military careers that prioritize collective success over individual recognition. The transformation at Nellis Air Force Base represented just the beginning of a much larger awakening that spread throughout military installations worldwide as Sarah's story circulated through official channels and informal networks. Within 6 months, training programs at multiple bases had incorporated case studies based on her experience, though the specific details remained classified. To protect ongoing operations, the fundamental lesson about recognizing hidden expertise transcended the particular circumstances of her dual role, inspiring a cultural shift that encouraged leaders to look beyond conventional indicators of competence and value. Colonel Martinez, at Andrews Air Force Base, found himself implementing similar policy changes after learning about the Nellis incident through classified briefings. If one installation missed recognizing exceptional capabilities for 18 months, how many other bases are making the same mistake? He asked during a commander's conference, prompting systematic reviews of personnel assignments and utilization strategies. The question sparked initiatives designed to identify individuals whose current roles might not fully leverage their experience and qualifications, leading to discoveries of former special operations personnel working in administrative positions and retired intelligence analysts serving in support roles. The psychological impact of Sarah's revelation extended beyond military personnel to defense contractors and civilian employees who worked alongside service members in various capacities. Margaret Thompson, a former CIA operative now working as a base librarian, found herself reconsidering her own decision to remain anonymous about her background after witnessing how Sarah's exposure had ultimately benefited both her personal fulfillment and organizational effectiveness. Seeing how her expertise enhanced mission success, when properly recognized, made me question whether my own desire for quiet retirement was serving anyone's best interests. Thompson reflected during informal discussions with colleagues who had learned to value diverse backgrounds. The ripple effects reached academic institutions that provided training for military officers, where Sarah's case became a cornerstone example in courses about leadership psychology and organizational behavior. Professor David Kim at the Air Force Academy used her story to illustrate how cognitive biases could prevent leaders from recognizing available resources and expertise within their own organizations. The most dangerous assumption in leadership is believing that you know the full capabilities of every person under your command. Kim taught his students using Sarah's experience to demonstrate how surface-level judgments could result in massive under-utilization of human capital. The intelligence community conducted comprehensive reviews of their deep cover programs following Sarah's exposure, recognizing that while her mission had been successful, the psychological cost of maintaining false identity for extended periods required better support systems and clearer exit strategies. Director Morrison led initiatives to develop more sustainable approaches to long-term undercover assignments that would protect both operational security and the mental health of personnel who sacrificed recognition and career advancement for national security purposes. The programs that emerged from these reviews emphasized the importance of maintaining connection with true identity while fulfilling cover responsibilities. Corporate executives who learned about Sarah's story through their own military backgrounds began implementing similar awareness initiatives in civilian workplaces, recognizing that the tendency to underestimate colleagues based on current positions existed across all organizational structures. Technology companies discovered retired engineers working in customer service roles. Financial institutions found former executives serving as security guards, and healthcare systems identified experienced physicians working as administrative assistants due to personal circumstances that had temporarily interrupted their careers. The veterans community embraced Sarah's story as validation of the challenges faced by former military personnel who struggled to have their expertise recognized. In civilian environments, veterans advocacy organizations used her case to illustrate how valuable experience and capabilities could remain hidden when organizations failed to look beyond job titles and current assignments. Support programs emerged that specifically focused on helping veterans communicate the full scope of their qualifications while encouraging employers to recognize the potential value of unconventional career paths and diverse professional backgrounds. The educational implications of Sarah's revelation prompted military training institutions to develop new curricula focused on improving observational skills and reducing assumption-based decision-making among future leaders. Cadets at service academies began participating in exercises designed to challenge their preconceptions about capability and expertise, learning to identify indicators of hidden knowledge and experience that might not be immediately obvious through conventional evaluation methods. These programs emphasized that effective leadership required intellectual humility and genuine curiosity about the backgrounds and capabilities of team members. The medical and psychological research community studied Sarah's case to better understand the long-term effects of maintaining false identity while performing high-stress duties that required exceptional competence. The findings revealed both the remarkable resilience required for such assignments and the importance of providing appropriate support systems for individuals who chose service over recognition. The research contributed to improved screening and support protocols for personnel involved in similar classified operations, ensuring that future assignments would better protect both mission effectiveness and individual well-being. International military exchanges incorporated discussions of Sarah's case into collaborative training programs, recognizing that the tendency to underestimate personnel based on appearance or assignment was a universal challenge that affected military effectiveness across all cultures and organizational structures. Allied forces shared similar stories of exceptional individuals whose capabilities had been overlooked due to bias or assumption, creating a growing body of knowledge about how to better recognize and utilize available expertise within military Organizations. The technological implications of Sarah's work became apparent as her aircraft modifications were studied and implemented across broader fleet configurations. The improvements she had developed during her cover assignment represented significant advances in aircraft performance and survivability, demonstrating how innovative thinking could emerge from the intersection of theoretical knowledge and practical experience. Engineering teams worked to understand and replicate her innovations, ensuring that her technical contributions would continue benefiting military aviation long after her specific assignment concluded. The philosophical questions raised by Sarah's story prompted deeper discussions about the nature of service and sacrifice in democratic societies. Her willingness to accept diminished recognition while conducting critical missions highlighted the dedication of individuals who chose meaningful contribution over personal advancement. These discussions influenced military ethics education and civilian understanding of the complex motivations that drive people to pursue careers where their most important achievements would never be publicly acknowledged or celebrated. The legacy of Sarah's revelation extended to families of military personnel who gained new appreciation for the possibility that their loved ones might be involved in activities more significant than their official assignment suggested. Military families learned to understand that the quiet acceptance of seemingly routine duties might actually represent profound commitment to national security missions that required extraordinary personal sacrifice. This understanding strengthened family support networks and improved resilience among military communities facing the challenges of uncertain deployments and classified responsibilities. The transformation in how military personnel approach their daily interactions created a more inclusive and collaborative environment where expertise was valued regardless of its source or packaging. Junior enlisted personnel found their insights taken more seriously by senior officers. Technical specialists gained increased influence in tactical planning, and support staff discovered new opportunities to contribute their unique perspectives to mission success. The cultural shift represented a fundamental evolution in military organization toward more effective utilization of available human resources. The enduring impact of Sarah's story lay in its demonstration that extraordinary capabilities and dedication could exist in the most unexpected places, waiting to be recognized and leveraged for the benefit of organizational mission and collective success. Her case became a permanent reminder that true leadership required the wisdom to look beyond surface appearances and the courage to challenge assumptions about what constituted valuable expertise and meaningful contribution to shared goals. Morning sun cast long shadows across the Nevada desert as Sarah completed her final equipment check at a classified airfield 60 miles from Nellis Air Force Base. Her modified Super Hornet sat gleaming on the tarmac, its experimental systems upgraded with the latest technological advances that her months of testing had helped refine. Today marked the conclusion of her deep cover assignment, though her departure would be as quietly orchestrated as her arrival had been 8 years earlier. The intelligence community had determined that her exposure at Nellis, while ultimately beneficial, required transitioning her to a new phase of service that would better protect both her identity and ongoing national security operations. Director Morrison approached across the tarmac, carrying a briefcase containing new assignment orders that would take Sarah to another installation where her expertise would continue, serving critical developmental programs. Captain Chen, your work at Nellis exceeded all expectations, Morrison said, her voice carrying genuine appreciation for accomplishments that would never appear in public records or receive conventional recognition. The intelligence gathered through your maintenance role provided insights that influenced policy decisions at the highest levels of government, while your aircraft modifications advanced our technological capabilities by several years. The transition represented both an ending and a beginning for Sarah, whose cover identity as a struggling maintenance technician would be replaced by a new role that allowed greater utilization of her exceptional capabilities while maintaining the operational security required for classified missions. Her new assignment would involve leading a team of similarly qualified pilots in developing next-generation aircraft systems, combining her practical experience with formal authority to guide critical research and development programs. The promotion represented recognition of her contributions while ensuring that her expertise would continue benefiting national security interests. Lieutenant Webb and several other pilots from Nellis had been granted special permission to attend Sarah's departure ceremony, though the location and nature of the event remained classified to protect ongoing operations. Webb's transformation since learning about Sarah's true identity had been remarkable, his former arrogance replaced by genuine humility and deep respect for colleagues whose backgrounds he might not fully understand. Captain Chen, working alongside you taught me more about leadership and professional excellence than any formal training program, he said, his words carrying the weight of personal growth that had resulted from confronting his own prejudices and assumptions. The assembled personnel represented a cross-section of individuals whose lives had been touched by Sarah's story and the broader lessons it illustrated about recognizing hidden potential in unexpected places. Captain Santos reflected on how the revelation had influenced her own approach to mentoring younger pilots and technical personnel, creating opportunities for knowledge sharing that transcended traditional rank structures and organizational boundaries. Your example showed us that true expertise doesn't always announce itself with fanfare, Santos observed, and that our effectiveness as leaders depends on our ability to identify and leverage talent regardless of its packaging. Senior Master Sergeant Rodriguez presented Sarah with a commemorative tool set engraved with signatures from maintenance personnel who had worked alongside her during the cover assignment. These tools represent the appreciation of everyone who learned from your expertise while you were helping us become better at our jobs, Rodriguez explained, her voice carrying emotion that reflected the genuine bonds formed, despite the deception required by Sarah's operational security. Your willingness to share knowledge while maintaining your cover identity made all of us more effective technicians and better service members. The ceremony highlighted the complex nature of service in an era where national security required individuals to sacrifice recognition and conventional career advancement for missions that might never be publicly acknowledged. Sarah's 8 years of accepting dismissive treatment while conducting critical operations represented a level of dedication that challenged traditional understanding of heroism and professional achievement. Her story demonstrated that some of the most important contributions to national security occurred in shadows where medals and commendations were impossible, pursued by individuals who chose meaning over recognition. Colonel Hayes addressed the assembled group with reflections on leadership lessons learned from Sarah's case, emphasizing how the revelation had transformed her own approach to personnel management and organizational effectiveness. Captain Chun's experience taught us that our most valuable resources might be hiding in plain sight, waiting for leaders wise enough to recognize potential that doesn't conform to conventional expectations. Hayes said, her words carrying implications that extended far beyond military applications to any organization seeking to maximize human capital and collective capability. Technical legacy of Sarah's work would continue influencing aircraft development for years to come as engineering teams implemented her innovations across multiple platform configurations. The modifications she had developed during routine maintenance procedures represented breakthrough advances in stealth technology, electronic warfare capabilities, and flight performance optimization. Chief Master Sergeant Williams led efforts to document and systematize these improvements, ensuring that her technical contributions would enhance pilot safety and mission effectiveness throughout the fleet. Psychological research conducted on Sarah's case had revealed important insights about the mental resilience required for extended undercover assignments and the support systems necessary to maintain both operational effectiveness and individual well-being. The findings influenced training programs for personnel involved in similar classified operations, emphasizing the importance of maintaining connection with authentic identity while fulfilling cover responsibilities that required sustained deception. About background and capabilities, Director Morrison's briefing to senior intelligence officials highlighted the strategic value of deep cover assignments that allowed exceptional personnel to gather intelligence while contributing to conventional military operations. Sarah's dual role had provided unique insights into training effectiveness, technological development priorities, and organizational culture that would have been impossible to obtain through traditional intelligence gathering methods. Her experience demonstrated the potential benefits of embedding highly qualified operatives in routine assignments, where their expertise could enhance both intelligence collection and operational improvement. The international implications of Sarah's story reached allied intelligence services that conducted similar deep cover operations, sharing lessons learned about maintaining operational security while maximizing the value of exceptional personnel in unconventional assignments. The case study became part of collaborative training programs that emphasized the importance of protecting operative identity while ensuring that their capabilities contributed effectively to broader mission objectives and organizational success. Departure ceremony concluded with Sarah climbing into her aircraft for a final flight that would take her to the next phase of her career, leaving behind colleagues who had been transformed by learning about her true identity and the broader lessons her story illustrated about human potential and professional excellence. Her engine spooled up with the familiar whine of advanced turbofan technology, the sound representing both ending and beginning as she prepared to transition from covert operative to acknowledged leader in critical development programs. As her aircraft lifted off from the classified airfield, the assembled personnel watched until it disappeared into the morning sky, each carrying personal reflections on how Sarah's revelation had influenced their own understanding of service, sacrifice, and the complex nature of excellence in military careers that prioritized collective success over individual recognition. Her departure marked the end of one extraordinary assignment while beginning another chapter in a career dedicated to advancing national security through innovation, leadership, and unwavering commitment to missions that might never receive public acknowledgement. The enduring impact of Sarah's story would continue influencing military culture long after her specific assignment concluded, serving as a permanent reminder that exceptional capabilities often existed in unexpected places, waiting for wise leadership to recognize and leverage them for the benefit of organizational mission and collective security. Her legacy represented the triumph of substance over appearance, competence over assumption, and dedication over recognition in an environment where true heroes often worked in shadows, pursuing meaning that transcended conventional measures of professional success and personal achievement. 6 months after Sarah's departure from Nellis Air Force Base, the cultural transformation she had catalyzed continued evolving in ways that surprised even the senior leadership who had witnessed her revelation firsthand. The monthly personnel evaluation meetings that Colonel Hayes had instituted became forums for discovering remarkable backgrounds among seemingly ordinary base personnel, revealing a pattern of underutilized expertise that extended far beyond Sarah's exceptional case. Staff Sergeant Maria Gonzalez, who had been working quietly in the base communications center, disclosed during one such meeting that she held advanced degrees in computer science and had previously worked for a major technology corporation developing cybersecurity protocols for government agencies. The revelation about Gonzalez prompted a systematic review of personnel files that uncovered dozens of similar cases where highly qualified individuals had been assigned to positions that failed to leverage their full capabilities. Master Sergeant Robert Kim, a supply specialist, revealed extensive experience in logistics optimization that had helped Fortune 500 companies streamline their distribution networks. Technical Sergeant Lisa Washington, who managed the Base Fitness Center, disclosed a background in sports medicine and rehabilitation therapy that could significantly enhance the injury prevention and recovery programs for pilots undergoing intensive physical training. These discoveries led to the establishment of a new personnel utilization program that actively sought to identify hidden expertise throughout the base population. The initiative, unofficially known as the Black Widow Protocol in honor of Sarah's call sign, created opportunities for personnel to volunteer information about their backgrounds without fear of disrupting their current assignments or creating unrealistic expectations about role changes. The program's success demonstrated that Sarah's case was not an isolated incident, but rather an indication of systemic underutilization of available human resources. Throughout military organizations, Lieutenant Webb had become an unofficial advocate for the cultural changes inspired by Sarah's story, using his influence among younger pilots to promote awareness of unconscious bias and the importance of recognizing expertise, regardless of its source. His transformation from arrogant dismissiveness to genuine intellectual humility created a powerful example that influenced pilot culture throughout the training command. Before Captain Chun's revelation, I thought competence was easily identifiable through rank and assignment, Webb explained during a squadron meeting. Now I understand that some of our most valuable resources might be people we've never thought to consult because they don't fit our preconceptions about expertise. The ripple effects of the Nellis transformation reached other military installations. Through personnel transfers and informal communication, networks that carried stories about the maintenance technician who turned out to be an elite test pilot. Fort Bragg implemented similar personnel review programs after learning about the success of the Black Widow Protocol, discovering that several enlisted personnel possessed special operations backgrounds that could enhance training programs for newly assigned units. Naval Air Station Pensacola began conducting regular expertise forums, where personnel could share knowledge and experience that might benefit training and operational effectiveness. The academic community, studying military organizational behavior, found Sarah's case to be a watershed moment that illustrated fundamental flaws in how large institutions evaluate and utilize human capital. Dr. Elizabeth Carter at the Naval War College published a comprehensive analysis of the incident that became required reading for senior officer development courses throughout the military education system. The Chun case demonstrates that traditional metrics for identifying and leveraging expertise are inadequate for modern military organizations, Carter wrote. Effective leadership requires systematic approaches to discovering and utilizing the full range of capabilities available within any given personnel population. The psychological support programs developed in response to Sarah's experience with extended undercover assignments began benefiting other personnel who had struggled with similar identity conflicts in their military careers. Veterans who had transitioned from combat roles to support positions found new resources for maintaining professional identity while adapting to changed circumstances. The counseling protocols developed for deep cover operatives proved applicable to any service member whose current assignment failed to reflect their full capabilities or previous achievements. The technological innovations that Sarah had developed during her maintenance duties continued generating benefits as engineering teams implemented her modifications across broader aircraft configurations. The stealth enhancements and electronic warfare improvements she had pioneered became standard features in next-generation fighter aircraft, though her contributions remained classified to protect ongoing development programs. The practical experience she had gained through her dual role provided insights that purely theoretical research could not have achieved, demonstrating the value of combining operational experience with technical development responsibilities. International military exchange programs began incorporating discussions of the Nellis transformation into their collaborative training initiatives, recognizing that the tendency to underestimate personnel capabilities was a universal challenge, affecting military effectiveness worldwide. British Royal Air Force officers shared similar stories of exceptional individuals whose backgrounds had been overlooked due to conventional thinking about expertise and authority. The French Air Force implemented their own version of the Black Widow protocol after discovering that several support personnel possessed advanced engineering degrees and combat experience that could enhance their training programs. The corporate sector learned about Sarah's story through defense industry connections and began implementing similar initiatives to identify underutilized expertise within their own organizations. Technology companies discovered that customer service representatives included former software architects. Maintenance crews included retired engineers with decades of experience, and administrative staff included former executives who possessed valuable strategic insights. The recognition that exceptional capabilities might exist throughout organizational hierarchies prompted management practices that encouraged knowledge sharing across traditional departmental boundaries. The veterans advocacy community embraced Sarah's story is validation of their efforts to help former military personnel communicate the full scope of their qualifications to civilian employers. Her case illustrated how valuable experience could remain hidden when organizations relied on superficial evaluation methods rather than systematic approaches to understanding individual backgrounds and capabilities. Employment counseling programs began emphasizing the importance of looking beyond job titles and current assignments to recognize transferable skills and expertise that could benefit organizational effectiveness. The educational implications of Sarah's revelation continued influencing military academies and professional development programs that sought to prepare future leaders for more effective personnel management. Cadets studying organizational leadership learned to question their assumptions about capability and expertise, developing observational skills that would help them identify available resources throughout their careers. The case studies based on her experience emphasized that true leadership required intellectual humility and genuine curiosity about the backgrounds and potential contributions of every team member. The medical research community, studying the psychological effects of extended identity concealment, found that Sarah's successful adaptation to dual roles provided valuable insights into human resilience and adaptation capabilities. The findings contributed to improved screening and support protocols for personnel involved in similar classified operations, ensuring that future assignments would better protect both mission effectiveness and individual mental health. The research revealed that maintaining authentic personal identity while fulfilling professional deception required specific psychological strengths that could be developed through appropriate training and support systems. The philosophical discussions prompted by Sarah's story continued influencing military ethics education and civilian understanding of service and sacrifice in democratic societies. Her willingness to accept diminished recognition while conducting critical missions highlighted the complex motivations that drove exceptional individuals to pursue careers where their most important achievements would never receive public acknowledgement. These discussions contributed to broader appreciation for the dedication required by personnel whose service occurred in classified environments where conventional rewards and recognition were impossible. The long-term impact of the cultural transformation at Nellis extended to family support networks and community organizations that gained new understanding of the complexity surrounding military careers and assignments. Military spouses learned to recognize that their partners' official positions might not reflect the full scope of their capabilities or contributions, leading to improved support systems for families dealing with the psychological challenges of classified work and unconventional career paths. The legacy of Sarah's revelation transformed not only military culture, but also the fundamental understanding of how exceptional individuals navigate systems that fail to recognize their true worth. In boardrooms across corporate America, Executives who had learned about the Black Widow case through their military connections began questioning their own assumptions about employee capabilities and potential contributions. Jennifer Walsh, CEO of a major aerospace contractor, implemented comprehensive skills assessments that revealed her night. Security supervisor was a former NASA engineer who had taken the position to maintain steady income during a career transition period following budget cuts at the space agency. The discovery prompted Walsh to create a new position that leveraged the supervisor's expertise in spacecraft design, leading to breakthrough innovations in satellite technology that generated millions in new contracts. Sarah Chen's story taught us that extraordinary talent doesn't always present itself in expected packages. Walsh explained during a conference presentation that became a landmark case study in human resource management. Our responsibility as leaders is to create environments where hidden expertise can emerge and contribute to organizational success. Universities studying organizational psychology found that Sarah's case represented a perfect example of what researchers termed capability camouflage, where exceptional individuals deliberately or circumstantially operated below their potential within institutional frameworks. Professor Michael Rodriguez at Stanford Business School used her story to illustrate how traditional evaluation metrics could systematically overlook valuable human capital. His research revealed that approximately 30% of employees in large organizations possessed qualifications and experience that significantly exceeded the requirements of their current positions. The healthcare industry discovered similar patterns when administrators began implementing Sarah-inspired evaluation protocols in their facilities. Dr. Amanda Foster, chief administrator at Walter Reed Medical Center, found that several custodial staff members were foreign-trained physicians whose credentials hadn't been recognized in the United States. The discovery led to mentorship programs that helped these individuals navigate certification processes while utilizing their medical knowledge in support roles that enhanced patient care quality. The transformation reached educational institutions, where teachers and support staff revealed backgrounds that could revolutionize learning opportunities for students. Principal David Martinez at a high school near Fort Bragg discovered that his maintenance supervisor was a retired Special Forces sergeant with extensive experience in survival training and leadership development. The revelation led to the creation of innovative physical education programs that incorporated military-inspired team building and resilience training, dramatically improving student engagement and confidence levels. The ripple effects extended to law enforcement agencies where similar evaluation protocols revealed exceptional backgrounds among personnel assigned to routine duties. Police Chief Sarah Thompson in a city adjacent to Naval Air Station Pensacola found that one of her patrol officers was a former FBI behavioral analyst whose expertise could revolutionize their approach to criminal investigation and community policing. The discovery led to specialized training programs that enhanced the department's effectiveness while providing the officer with opportunities to utilize skills that had been dormant for years. The international impact of Sarah's story reached diplomatic circles where embassy personnel began recognizing that support staff often possessed cultural knowledge and language skills that could enhance diplomatic effectiveness. Ambassador Robert Chun at the U.S. Embassy in Tokyo discovered that his administrative assistant was a former international trade specialist whose insights into Japanese business culture proved invaluable for negotiating complex agreements between American and Japanese corporations. The technology sector embraced the lessons from Sarah's case with particular enthusiasm, recognizing that rapid industry evolution often left highly qualified individuals in positions that didn't reflect their current capabilities. Software companies began implementing regular innovation forums, where employees could propose projects that leveraged their hidden expertise, leading to breakthrough products developed by teams whose true qualifications had been previously overlooked by management. The entertainment industry found unexpected applications for Sarah's story when film and television producers began recognizing that crew members often possessed creative talents that could enhance production quality. Director Maria Santos discovered that her location scout was a former cinematographer whose artistic vision revolutionized the visual approach to her independent film, earning critical acclaim that launched both their careers in new directions. Financial services industry implemented similar recognition protocols after learning how valuable expertise could remain hidden within organizational structures that prioritize credentials over actual capability. Bank President Michael Foster found that one of his security guards was a former investment banker whose market analysis skills helped the institution avoid significant losses during economic volatility. The agricultural sector discovered that seasonal workers often possessed advanced degrees and technical expertise that could modernize farming operations and improve sustainability practices. Ranch owner Jennifer Wilson learned that her equipment maintenance worker was a former agricultural engineer whose innovations in irrigation technology increased crop yields while reducing water consumption by 40%. The impact extended to religious organizations where clergy began recognizing that congregation members possessed professional expertise that could enhance community outreach and social service programs. Pastor David Thompson discovered that his volunteer coordinator was a former nonprofit executive whose organizational skills transformed their charity work into a model program that other churches sought to replicate. The sports industry found applications for Sarah's lessons when coaches and team managers began looking beyond obvious athletic talent to recognize hidden capabilities among support staff and lesser-known players. Coach Maria Rodriguez discovered that her equipment manager was a former professional athlete whose training insights revolutionized her team's conditioning program, leading to championship-level performance improvements. The lasting transformation prompted by Sarah's story created a fundamental shift in how society approached the recognition and utilization of human potential. Her case demonstrated that exceptional capabilities could exist anywhere, waiting for wise leadership to discover and leverage them for collective benefit. The recognition that extraordinary individuals might be operating in ordinary roles became a call to action for leaders across all sectors to look beyond surface appearances and create environments where hidden talent could emerge and flourish. Enduring message of Sarah's revelation was that true leadership required the humility to recognize that expertise and excellence could emerge from unexpected sources, challenging conventional assumptions about capability and worth while creating opportunities for extraordinary individuals to contribute their unique talents to shared goals and collective success. Today, Sarah Chen continues her classified missions. Somewhere above the clouds, her call sign Black Widow still freezing radar screens across the globe. But her true legacy lives on in every military base, corporate office, and community where leaders have learned to look beyond the surface. That quiet person sitting next to you right now, the one who never speaks up in meetings, the colleague who always arrives early and leaves late, the maintenance worker who seems to know just a little too much about complex systems. They might be your organization's hidden Black Widow. They could be the former Navy SEAL working in accounting, the retired CIA analyst managing your supply chain, or the ex-astronaut teaching at your local high school. The most dangerous assumption we make is thinking we know someone's complete story based on what we see. The janitor mopping floors might have once walked on the moon. The barista making your morning coffee might be the surgeon who could save your life. The security guard checking IDs might be the former general who once commanded thousands. Sarah's story isn't just about one extraordinary pilot. It's about recognizing that extraordinary people are everywhere, waiting for someone wise enough to see their true value. They don't announce themselves with fanfare. They just show up, do what needs to be done, and disappear back into ordinary life until the world needs saving again. And somewhere out there, Black Widow is ready to answer that call. If this story opened your eyes to the hidden heroes around you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every week we uncover more incredible stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Drop a comment below. Who in your life might be hiding an amazing secret? Share this video with someone who needs to remember that everyone has a story worth discovering. Until next time, keep looking deeper.